Hello and welcome back to the Comic Lounge. Today's episode is another Christmas-themed one, continuing it, and since I had mentioned that these episodes are going to be me talking about at least two comics each, well, I have, again, two for you today, and just like the last one, there's at least one that I have recently have read. Well, the one I'm going to actually will show afterwards was one I kind of read around last year during Christmas time, but it's finally great to now talk about it. But the first one I'm going to show is just like with the theme of the last one. I had shown Daredevil 241, which I had since I was a kid. This next one I've also had since I was a kid. And so let's get to it. It is Judge Dredd number 6. Again, this, as you can tell, this is a Christmas-themed cover drawn by Brett Ewins. For me, being into a lot of the old school heavy metal stuff, since if you're a comic book fan, you may not know too much about a lot of the bands, whatever that was it that I'm normally into. But still, for me, I was getting into a lot of the obscure sort of heavy metal bands, and one of those bands was a band called Tank, and they were a British band. Well, Brett Ewins, the artist here, who also had been doing quite a bit of Judge Dredd, also around the time of 1982, contributed the artwork to Tank's very first album titled Filth Hounds of Hades. So I'll show you right there. Again, I do have a copy, but it's in storage. So, finally to get around the corner, I've had this since I was a kid, way before I knew about the band Tank. And so, me growing up as a Judge Dredd fan, no thanks to the Sylvester Stallone movie around the time period, and me, of course, playing the Super NES game, very, very young. Right? It would be like the late 90s. Whenever I'd be, where my mom, who had to go to work, she would at least drop me off at my grandmother's house. And so I would play the Judge Dredd game, even though it would be hard as balls. Still, it was just something about Judge Dredd that was so cool, just like with all of us growing up. We just thought Judge Dredd was so cool. Ask Scott Ian of Anthrax. He thought the character was so cool that he had to, almost harass the New York whatever comic book shop that he would like to go to on getting in Judge Dredd. And that's what led to what the song I Am the Law for Anthrax off of Among the Living. So either way, just like all of us, we love the idea of Judge Dredd, even though nowadays we look at it, it's basically was meant as a satire, a parody of police officers. Still, just like with all other characters like Punisher or Deathstroke or whatever, all of these sort of gray area anti-hero, anti-villain characters, we just thought Judge Dredd is just the coolest character of all. But still, since she knew I was getting into the comic books, I was at least wanting to get into the comic books, and I also was getting the action figures around that period of the early 2000s. She, of course, went to a comic book shop and she came back with this, and it turned out it's a Christmas-themed edition for it. And so with all of these Judge Dredd books here in the United States, all of these were mostly at least reprinting of at least some select short stories from the vast catalog of the original 2000 AD magazine comic strips from the UK from like at least 1977 to at least around this period would have been very, very current for the 80s. And so like with this one, this is a giant size. It takes at least 4 or 5 short stories, and they were all at least Christmas themed. And so it starts off with the one which would have been the most current or modern Judge Dredd story from like 1985, and involves the Mean Machine Angel, who actually ended up in the Sylvester Stallone movie. And so, but when I had seen that movie, he was crazy. But I had to reread this, and he's a lot crazier in the comics than he actually was in the film. And a lot of the characters that have showed up within the 2 live-action Judge Dredd films have all been crazier in there. Again, this is Alan Grant and John Wagner, who also would go on to DC Comics and do a lot of crazy stuff over there, even introducing some fairly notable characters for either Batman and Alan Grant, who of course would do Lobo, If you want to know where that crazy, almost satire sort of vibe comes from, Judge Dredd. So the first story is it's a Christmas themed, and it deals with the Mean Machine Angel, and he's just absolutely insane. It deals with at least it, and of course there's a little bit of politically incorrect stuff in the short story, but still it deals with a deranged psychopath who pretty much already straps a bomb or at least some sort of almost like what you expect from terrorists to do. They strap to them, and he goes and takes over like an Italian village, and he's holding it hostage because he wants some sort of deal or whatever from the judges. But Judge Dredd, when he shows up, you know that Judge Dredd is not going to comply with criminals. But still, on the other hand, you got the Mean Machine Angel who gets brought into this family. I think he getting let go from prison or whatever. He might have escaped it for all I know, and is making some sort of story. But they found him, and they bring him in, and then they give him this little Christmas present. It turns out it's a Judge Dredd Jack-in-the-Box thing, and once that pops out, you know, he plays with it. It brings back some memories for the Mean Machine Angel, especially memories of how he got thrown in prison in the first place, Judge Dredd. And so it makes him go crazy. He completely destroys the entire family. I think practically almost kills them. And he goes out and he's practically now in conflict with the deranged terrorist that is holding this Italian village hostage. And so he gets involved, and Judge Dredd knows who the Mean Machine Angel is, and he wants to know why he's all of a sudden back in his sight. But still, he gets into a confrontation with the terrorist, and now it's a back and forth. It's like, because the Mean Machine Angel, he's in a rampage. He doesn't really care who's in his sight. And so what does he do? Not even caring that he's got a bomb strapped up to his chest. He goes and freaking boom. And he doesn't get killed, but the guy does. And so there, and you see this little shot where he's being carried out on a stretcher, the Mean Machine Angel, but they're all making these sort of comments saying like, well, we just have to, we still got a lot of pieces of that guy stuck on him. So we already know he blew up the guy and all of his guts are basically on him. And it just paints this insane picture, and yet the Mean Machine Angel, he survives the explosion. It is a bonkers Christmas story, and there's more bonkers Christmas stories in this one. You have Judge Dredd dealing with practically a zombie on Christmas, and it's from, at least that one's around like the early to mid 80s, whatever. And that's insane, like from 82 to 83. And I didn't realize it was a horror story in this Judge Dredd book, but it's a Christmas-themed horror story. It's almost like taken straight out of one of those DC horror books, or even the old EC comic stuff, but it's with Judge Dredd trying to take down this sort of it was like almost a machine itself, like a cyborg robot or whatever. And he's an old man at least, but he gets mugged and he gets dropped into this waste. And they take his wallet, or to leave it, you know, the money, whatever. But what they didn't realize is that he's not really human, and he comes back out grotesque, and he looks, and it's what, I need fresh flesh. And so he goes on a rampage trying getting everybody and ruining Christmas parties and so on. And Judge Dredd has to now find him. It's bonkers. It's like I'm always get more and more surprised by some of these Judge Dredd stories from the Bronze Age to at least the early Copper. These are just absolutely insanity, and it's just due to John Wagner and Alan Grant. And I talked about the Dark Judges as part of my Halloween one, but these are even just as crazier than those stories. Like this, that just is just scratching the surface. This is just absolutely bonkers, and there's still some other sort of Christmas-themed stories here and there. The last one is actually probably the earliest Judge Dredd story that I have in a comic, and it's from like 1977, around the period when the character was just introduced, but it deals with more of a young Judge Dredd. But it deals with the character, was it Wally the Robot? Yes, that's, I didn't pronounce it incorrectly. He's pronounced robot with a W. And so he gets taken hostage by this deranged Santa guy, and it almost would be thinking, is this going into like a Silent Night, Deadly Night sort of thing? But he's a serial killer, so he takes him, but he's trying to hold him hostage for Judge Dredd to come so he can kill him. But still, Judge Dredd shows up, and again, you got, was it Wally trying to talk with comply, like, I don't want to, like, please, Judge Dredd, don't come, leave me to die, whatever. And it's trying to be a little bit cute, but still, on top of that, you got some. It's almost very deranged, but Judge Dredd takes out the guy who shows up, and then by the end you got these little sort of cute moment, whatever, between Judge Dredd and Wall the Robot, and it's almost at times kind of jarring, but again, it's early John Wagner, and I think even early Alan Grant through too for those, but it is just crazy, but I definitely recommend finding this if you can. If you're interested in some Judge Dredd Christmas stories, or at least some Christmas stories that are kind of bordering on both being sadistic, maybe politically incorrect if you're into that, or it has some horror vibes to it, check this out. Find this. It shouldn't be that expensive these days. So it shouldn't cost you an arm and a leg. It'll probably pay $3 to $5 maybe, possibly, for it. So go on and find this stuff. It's really, some of it's really cool. I've been showing probably some snippets of the comics, strips, whatever in here. So please do. It's just crazy. All right, so finally the last one I'm going to show here is, well, since in my intro I've showed some Spawn, and you probably should know where I took those pages from. It's obviously from the special Christmas issue of Spawn, which is issue number 39. And it's one that's kind of not super directly tied to what was going on in the storyline with Spawn. There's none of the stuff about, the clown making the deal with Jason Wynn. There's none of that. There's not the stuff with... there's hints at the end with what's going on with Terry Fitzgerald and his wife. Spawn's been trying to... going after Terry Fitzgerald because he pretty much believes he's a traitor, even though really Terry Fitzgerald only took the job, of head something, I think, for secretary or some sort of division for Jason Wynn, only so he can get access to finding out what Jason Wynn is doing, what are the crimes, whatever, why is he connected to Billy Kincaid and all of that. So there's only slight hints, but for the most part, it's a completely, it's its own story, it's separate, and the whole point is that you got this kid who's in a family with at least a single mother who is working at a diner. She's not really getting paid much, and they're trying to afford food. And but still, it's Christmas. I think there might be some presents under there, but they're struggling. It's a struggling family. Well, outside of this, Spawn gets sight of these robbers. And what does he do? He decides to act like a typical vigilante, like Batman style, and he starts fighting them. But there's these sounds, because of Spawn, he's got the chains and everything, and yet this kid, he hears it because it's being taken at least outside of the apartment complex. And he hears it and he thinks, it's Santa! Santa's here! And so, as you've probably seen by the page, which you've seen at the intro, that's what it is. He thinks it's Santa Claus. He's mistaking Spawn for Santa Claus. And so, finally, he gets too late, whatever. But all he sees is money. And there's money being dropped down to it and Spawn doesn't really care that all that money is being taken away. If anything, Spawn ends up being like Green Arrow or Robin Hood or somebody. He's actually giving money back to people, but it's just by accident. But the kid is mistaking Spawn for Santa Claus, and he's thanking Spawn for it. And so he's actually given somehow dropped the whole bunch of money that is now he puts in a little gift box, whatever, puts it on the tree, and when the mother comes home, he goes, I got a gift for you. And it's a whole lot of money. The mom I don't think the mom even asks the kid how the kid got the money. It's just that it just so happened that the money just shows up on the kid, but the kid doesn't bring up how. But still, it just showed up. Santa Claus just brought us money. And that's all. And she's able to pay off whatever bills, the apartment, whatever. And everything's now all fine and dandy. And it's almost a heartwarming story. But it's with Spawn. And then at the end, you see Spawn, at least in his thrown in the, Rat City, the alley of Rat City, the special area he's got over there. And I've got the photo frame of both Wanda and Terry, but I think he's kind of shutting out Terry Fitzgerald in general, who was his former buddy, if you're not familiar with Spawn. Still, great cover from Greg Capullo and Todd McFarlane for this one. And I think they did like a Christmas album, or it might have been, I don't know if it's a real one, but there's a supposed Christmas album that's using the artwork and everything that's for Spawn. And it's probably the most bonkers thing I've ever seen as an ad. And I think it's on the back of the cover, but I'm not going to take it out right now. I don't feel like it. Still though, it is obviously one I have to bring up, and I think it's probably one to look for. And this is also one that you can at least find maybe $5 to $10, whatever. So it's not that much. So there you have it. There's all of the two comics I just decided I had picked out for today. And so if you're interested in the two of the stories I just showed you, please go out and find them. I think they're very cool to look into. I think they're very interesting. And so, since I kind of also mentioned it at the end of the other episode, if there's any recommendations you want to give me of some cool Christmas-themed comic book stories, let me know down in the comment section below. But if you really like what you see on this channel, all the stuff that I talk about and so on, not only will it do me great, but it'll do you great, because once you hit that subscribe button, you'll never miss out on any new content. So until then, this is, the Thrashhead over at the Thrashhead Comic Lounge saying I will be back, and I'll see you all again next week. Take care, everybody.